Hello classmates, so welcome back to another video, and in this video I will be making the primal acceptor from SSSS Gridman. Yeah, it's a pretty long title, and I think that I did a good job if I compare to the actual merch of the anime, but I will say this one, it took a lot of time and a lot of calibration because the faces were particularly hard because you need to connect to the, I think, some sort of core, and you need to carve the paths very clearly because the print is very difficult to do. But without further ado, let's get to the actual review. So this anime, I really enjoying the animation because it was made, I think, for by Studio Trigger, so you know the animation is good. And another thing was even the shots. They kind of remind me a little bit of Evangelion. Like we have a big fight scenes and just another shot of pretty calm scenes. But in overall aspects of the themes, I think the anime was a little bit confused about which direction the anime was going to go. Because if you take, for example, the first episodes, the series tried to paint it more like a mature anime, kind of like comparing itself to other mecha genres like Gundam, the old Gundam before the reboot, and Evangelion too. They took a lot of inspirations from Evangelion, and I like the whole premise that when people die by the kaiju in this anime, they are like forgotten. They're literally erased from existence. And another thing that I find like I really like was that in the background you could see the kaijus, but they are not moving. And it's unnerving how people can see the kaijus in the background. And I really like the thematic standpoint. Another thing that I will get a little bit later is that I think in the first episodes or in the first half, we see that the protagonist actually loses and he doesn't come back because like Gridman is like a computer and the boy needs to enter the computer to fight against the kaijus, and one time that he lost, he doesn't come back. And like we see other characters like scramble to find him and other things, and I think that gave a lot of attention to the series, but it's not used very much later on. So I think it was a missing point that the series could have developed a little bit more. But I think one of the missing points, or I think one of the big problems that this anime had, was the introduction of the accessories, the Gridman accessories. And like they were a quirky bunch. We have two accessories that were actually interesting, but like we have five. Two of them were interesting, and the three others were like just there. And when they were introduced, like that's the problem that I think I talk about in the 86 review, was that when fighting became generic, they started to fall back to a more generic formula, like Monster of the Week or Power of Friendship kind of formula. And this could have been an interesting take, like the whole interactions and chemistry between the accessories could have been very interesting, but the interactions do not fit the themes that the first half, especially in the first episodes that the Gridman series established. Because the Gridman series starts like if they lose, people will not just die, they will get evaporated from existence. So it's a pretty heavy tone, but the accessories just like take it to a more comedic formula, and I think this was not very confusing, but a little bit like I don't know. I know it is a little bit comic relief, but I did not like it. I think they could have been a better chemistry between the accessories and the main cast. Now, for the cast, we have Yuta as our main protagonist, and he is a very generic and not much really going on in some kind of special way in a character-wise development throughout the whole anime. And for me, he just comes across a very generic and cookie cutter shonen protagonist. The only thing that really catch my eye in his character appearance was that he had amnesia and he did not remember his friends. But although I find that interesting, I really felt that was a little bit tropey just to force an introduction of his friends like Rika and Sho later on in I think the classroom. It was the first thing that we saw the whole cast. Now, for Rika, although she comes across at first like a very cold and much more mature personality if you compare it to Sho and Yuta, I think she was one of the best written characters in this whole anime because she has like this exterior of coldness and mature, but inside she's a very soft and kind person because when Auntie was kicked out and eating from trash, she was the only one that like tried to feed him and help him. And especially in the later half, she was the only one that was realistically trying to reach out to Akane to snap out of her delusions. And because of that, like when Akane was like realizing that what she did was wrong, Rika stood by her and sit next to her, waiting for her to wake up from this dream and wake up to reality. Now, in my opinion, Sho pretty much came across like a self-insert character because, like, while Yuta was trying to explain to Rika that he actually saw Gridman in a old school computer inside her mother's like store, Sho just went along with and believed Yuta and actually was trying to contact Gridman, but he couldn't obviously. And although he had like some kind of relationship with Akane, his interactions like did not really matter much at all if you compare Akane's interactions with Rika and Yuta. But besides that, I didn't really much care about the other side characters. Like sometimes we had a funny moment between Bor and Sho, or even when Caliburn tries to socialize. But other than that, they all felt like a gag or a forced reaction, and the whole interaction with the cast, with the accessory, felt kinda empty for me. So I know I will get in a little bit of spoiler territory, but it's a very important plot point that I need to explain because if I don't explain it, the second half will not make any sense. So we discovered that the city that the anime takes place, the people there and there, even Sho and Rika, don't actually exist. They are just like they were created by Akane because Akane is like the god of this world, and she has a fantasy of creating kaijus, destroying the city, and then rebuilding it again. So I think this explains a lot, like why people disappear when they are killed, and why there are kaijus like just standing around in the horizon of the city, but no one seems to notice. And I think this explain a little bit, but the way they explains I didn't really like. Like we're explained this by another kaiju, another sentient kaiju. I don't remember her name because she only appears like twice in the whole anime, and she's appears in a mysterious way. She doesn't explain much, and she only says that Akane is the god of this world. This could have, I think, if it was another anime or another, like how I put it, if it was not constructed very well, it could have destroyed the whole premise. But I like how the anime just changed the themes from fighting and from protecting the city to actually exploring this new revelation, because like they shift the fighting to the to more character relationship type of thing. And I think that there was a pretty smart move, because if they kept on just fighting against Akane, I don't think it could have turned out really well. And I think the embodiment of all of that shifting focus to from fighting to character relationship, the embodiment of all of that is the character Anti, because he starts off as a pretty simple villain with a pretty simple premise. Akane created him to destroy Gridman by any means necessary, so he's a little bit smarter than the other kaijus, but he's not like really that smart. And he can change between human form and kaiju form, and we see that Akane treats him like absolute crap, but he still linked to Akane because she's like his creator and all of that. But I think when he snapped was when he tried to kill Yuta, not in the Gridman form but in his human form, because in his head Yuta is the Gridman, so if I kill Yuta I kill Gridman. And I will not say that the rationalization was wrong, but I think Akane did not like that. Akane then drops him, like she literally abandons him, and it was really sad because he like starts living eating garbage. And I think the only character that actually took pity on him was Rika, and the interactions between him and Rika was like the very sweet moments of the series, of the anime, and I really enjoyed that. And I think in the finale he shifts from just another rival villain to an actual, he still is a rival, but he like respects Gridman now. And I think in the finale he becomes Gridman Knight and fight alongside Yuta in the finale. And I really enjoy the transition that he made in the whole anime, because he just starts off as another villain to actually become an important character, and a character that I think I really care about. The only, aside from the main cast, he is the highlight of the antagonist, and I really enjoy his character all throughout the anime. So another thing that I find really interesting was the whole side of manipulation that Akane did in the later half of the anime with Yuta, Sho, and Rika. Like, we know that Akane is really likes Yuta, but not in a lovely way. She likes him in a younger way. So when she finds out that Gridman is actually Yuta, because she goes there and Yuta is talking to the Gridman through the computer, she like snaps and takes her, like, I think it's an X-Acto knife, and stabs him in the gut. So she's like very yandere type character, like if I can have him then no one else can, and she just stabs him in the gut. And another thing that is really messed up was when she tried to like manipulate Rika to be on her side by telling her that even if she killed everyone that she loves, she would still love her because Akane, like, Akane made her that way. So even if like Akane killed everyone, like Sho, Yuta, her friends, it did not really matter because she's programmed to love Akane, and that's really messed up. And for last, I think this one, it was not a big deal. Like, she tried to convince Sho that, because she knows that Sho really likes mechas and the whole tokusatsu thing, and I think she like tried to convince him that Sho could actually date her just because they like the same hobby. And I know this is nothing compared to what she did with Yuta and Rika, but it really goes to show that she is not just like being manipulated, she is the manipulator, and she is an actual menace in the whole anime in the later half, because she like tries to break the main cast into fighting each other. Now, for the actual antagonist of the whole anime, and that is Alexis. I think his character, even though he's a little bit tropey in his speech and in the design, even in the design of his character, you can see that he really has some like aura around him. He's like an absolute menace because like when he first meets Yuta, he tells Yuta to meet him in a restaurant, and their restaurant was like the old house of Rika's friend that was killed in the first episode. And the one serving the dishes is, I think, Rika's friend's dad, and he just talks so casually with him, like he did not just kill his daughter. And I think like he goes to another way to mess up with Gridman and with Yuta. And in the later half, the way he manipulates Akane's rage and like fueling her rage, her frustration, the desire to stay in this fantasy world is like a absolute menace. And like I think when Rika tried to reach out and she was almost like telling Akane that it's alright to feel this way, but you cannot harm people and you need to get out of this fantasy, he just like he's really straight to the point. He's like, I don't really need you anymore, and he just snaps his fingers and transforms Akane into a kaiju. And with that, I think he kind of reminds me of a lot of Power Rangers, tokusatsu kind of villains that they will sacrifice everyone and everything to destroy the protagonist. I don't know if I like that, but I like the presence of the character more than his actually importance in the whole story. And I think the Alexis was a really good character, but for antagonist, I don't know. I enjoyed Akanes more than Alexis. So to conclude, the anime was pretty nice. In a technical standpoint, the animation was nothing less what you expect from a big anime studio like Trigger. The only things that throw me off a little bit is the CGI, but that's just because I watch anime. In the most part, I don't watch mecha, I just watch like fantasy anime and a little bit military, and sometimes the CGI really throws you off, but that's just because you are not used to, so I don't see that in a major like flaw in the anime, because I know how difficult it is to animate like mechas and kaiju fighting, so it is not a major flaw in the anime. Now, one of the things that I find like a big flaw is in the world building kind of sense, because if you understand, the SS Gridman is an introduction to the Gridman universe. So I don't know if you can say the Gridman universe, but like this franchise that they are building, because like there are three plot points that are not really addressed in some kind of way. One of the things was the lolly sentient kaiju that we saw in the later half, because she appears, follows Yuta, tells him a major plot point that all this world is made by Akane and she is the god of this world, and then leaves. I think I just saw her character and I find like, well, then Akane made her to mess with Yuta. But no, she's actually detached from the powers of Akane, just like Yuta is. So we don't know who she is, why she told Yuta the plot point, and I don't know, I felt like she was a pretty strange character. Another thing was the introduction of the Gridman accessories, and my problem with them is not just the interactions and how they do not fit in the overall cast, but the introduction of them, because except for Caliburn, the other four are not introduced in a palliative way, like they are not introduced like one episode will focus on the accessory, the other will focus in another. No, they just appear in an episode, like they all four of them, they know how to use their powers, they know what to do, they know what they're capable of, and they must help Gridman. I found that a little bit strange, but I understand that in a narrative kind of way it could have thrown off balance the pace. So that's why I think if the Gridman anime could have a little bit more episodes, they could have done that, but I understand that sometimes the whole script is a little bit packed and they could not afford to introduce everyone like a little bit. They just need to introduce them and use them to fight in the finale. And for the last thing that I find really strange is that what is Gridman? Like in the end, he becomes like super powerful. He can like overrides Akane's power, even though he is constrained by the laws of Akane's world, and he likes to just use Yuta as a vessel for him to fight against Alexis, but he's not actually really there. So I did not understand what Gridman was, and I don't know if they will explain this later in another season or in another continuation of this anime, but I found the whole Gridman thing a little bit strange. The character Gridman, not Yuta, but the Gridman character that Yuta talks to. Now, finally, I think for the major positive point that I think it offsets everything wrong with this anime, it is the character interaction, especially between Auntie and the crew. Like, Auntie, I think, had some major character developments in the series, and I think Rika has some too, show doesn't really have a lot, but their whole interaction, their whole chemistry, even with Akane, really like felt real. It did not feel forced in some kind of way. I really enjoy like in the end when Akane was sad crying in her bedroom and Rika goes there and says that she can have friends even though she does not need everything to be perfect and everyone to just follow her. She can have friends in real life. I really enjoyed that side of character Rika's because in the first episodes Rika comes like a little bit cold and brute to Yuta, and in the later episode we saw how she empathizes with the other characters, like she helps Auntie and she almost saves Akane from being manipulated by Alexis, and I really enjoyed that. Now I think the best character in this anime by far is Auntie. He has progression from just another villain to like rival, understanding his purpose and what he needs to do to finally fighting for Gridman. I really enjoy his whole character arc, and this one was a major positive point. So I think in the end the SS Gridman was a really nice anime and deserves to be watched. So thank you for watching, and remember, this is just my opinion about this anime. If you have something to add or something to disagree with me, leave it down below in the comments. But for now, it's just this. Bye bye.